people, the Israelites, were enslaved in the land of Egypt. They were held captive against their will, forced, sometimes through the threat of violence, to work for Pharaoh. And the people cried out in their suffering and in pain. And God heard their cries. And so God said, I will go into the land of Egypt and I will set my people free. But there was a problem, because Pharaoh didn't want to let the Israelites go free. Pharaoh wanted to keep them as his slaves. They were his free labor. They made him a prophet out of nothing. When God said, set the people free, Pharaoh said, absolutely not. And so, God sent plagues into the land of Egypt to convince Pharaoh to let the people go. God turned the water into blood. God sent locusts and lice into the land. God snuffed out all light, having darkness. And throughout all of this, Pharaoh, again and again and again and again, said, no, I will not let those people go. And so God sent one more plague. God said, I will descend on the land of Egypt, and I will kill every firstborn. But God talked to the people of Israel, God's people, and said, I don't want to kill you. I don't want to kill my own people. And so God gave the Israelites some instructions. God said, do the following. Take a lamb and kill it. And then take the blood of this lamb and put it over the doorpost. And then when I descend on the land of Egypt to kill the firstborn, I will know to pass over your households, to let you live. And then take this lamb and cook it over the fire. And those of you who have more than enough, share your lamb with people who are in need, who can't afford their own lamb. And then God said, prepare unleavened bread, a quick bread, and have your sandals on and your coat on so that you are ready to flee Egypt at a moment's notice. Because God's freedom could come at any moment, and the people needed to be ready to go. Finally, God said, do all of these things now. In this time of plague and this time of suffering. And then do all of these things every year for the rest of time. Do these and share them with your children. Share them with your children's children. In our reading today, God creates one of the first and most important traditions in Judaism. God creates the tradition of the Passover. And this is a tradition that our siblings who are Jewish do every year and have done for thousands of years. And this tradition is important because it teaches the Jewish people who they are. It reminds them of their identity, and it calls them to who God wants them to be. In practicing this tradition of the Passover, the people are reminded that they are a people of suffering, that they were slaves in the land of Egypt, that they were in pain. And when they cried out in that pain, God heard them. In this tradition of Passover, they are reminded that while they are a people of suffering, they are also a people of freedom. That God drew them out of slavery and gave them life. This tradition tells them who they are. And it also calls them to who God wants them to be. In this tradition, they are reminded that they are a people of compassion. That when someone doesn't have enough, those who have more than enough ought to share, even when they're all slaves in Egypt. It calls them to be compassionate people, people of freedom for all. Our traditions are important to us because they teach us about who we are and who we are meant to be. My family has an important tradition. It's a family vacation that we take every summer. Everyone on my mom's extended side of the family, so about 30 people, we rent a big vacation house and we stay together for a week. Sometimes in the mountains and sometimes at the beach. And when you get 30 people together in a house for a week, there's conflict. These vacations are wonderful, but they are not without disagreement. We have differences of opinion on politics, economics, and religion, which is particularly difficult since religion is my profession. But we have gathered together for the past 20 years for a week. Because despite the conflict, this tradition of family vacation teaches us who we are as a family. It tells us what it means to be family. That even though we disagree and we have conflict, we love one another. We can play games together, we can share stories and talk about our lives. Our family can depend on one another. We do this tradition because it reminds us of who we are, and it calls us to be even better to one another, to forgive and to move past our conflicts, and to support one another. This is one of my favorite family traditions because it has taught me about what it means to be in a family, and it's taught me about what it means to be who I am as a strong and smart and independent woman. And these family vacations, I see the women in my family, my 97-year-old matriarch of a grandmother, and she teaches me who I am called to be. Our traditions matter. I wonder what some of your traditions are in your families. I want you to take a moment to find someone in this room and share with them one tradition that's important to you. Maybe it's a tradition from your family, maybe from your friends, or from your church community. Something that is important to you. Share that with one other person, and then share why. Why is this tradition important? Why is it something that you enjoy or want to keep doing? So take a couple of minutes to share with one or two other people in this room. And then when you see me stand back up front, then you'll know to kind of wrap up your conversations and we'll continue. So share a tradition and why it's important.